So the question is, what does compliance certification cover? So an employee, whether they're in production or whether they're in retail, this process covers the entire value chain throughout the food industry and especially the meat industry. So if we look at the equipment that it covers, and the list is not extensive, and this is really just an example, but it covers the bandsaw, it covers the mincer, it covers a knife, the tenderizer, the slicer. Uh, any equipment that is dangerous or potentially dangerous that is covered under the Health and Safety Act and or its regulations is something that you need to provide training on for every individual that operates such equipment. So, for example, if as a butchery, you have a bandsaw and you need at least one person trained on using the bandsaw. Now, you could potentially have a person with many years of experience, and we all know that finding qualified good qualified people is it's one of those almost impossible tasks. So for the most part, you try and hang on to the people that you have with many years of experience. But at some stage, a person is going to be absent, a person is going to be sick, a person is going to go on leave, and they need to be relieved by another person. So you inevitably have to at least have two people who have been trained on using a bandsaw and who are certified to be able to operate the bandsaw. And the same goes for the mincer. Every person within your organization will need to understand how to use a knife, and they need to be trained on how to use a knife. Basic knife skills is really, it's one of the basics of food compliance within any food environment or food production environment and or retail environment. And unfortunately and fortunately, a knife is probably the most basic and the most essential piece of equipment that you can have in your organization. Because if you don't have a knife, you can't use any of the other equipment. The tenderizer, seen some horrible things and heard some horrible stories over the years, and the same goes for the slicer. So generally in the production area, you would look at the bandsaw and the mincer as sort of your key pieces of equipment. In the retail environment, the slicer, think of a supermarket, the deli counter, all the people that work behind the deli counter by right needs to be trained and needs to be certified to be able to use a slicer. I've been in the industry for a number of years, and I've seen a couple of things that can't be unseen. And one of which is to see an untrained and inexperienced individual operating one of these slicers is really something that gives me nightmares to this day. Now, all of these pieces of equipment requires a certificate of compliance because it is covered in the health and safety legislation. People must be trained on using the dangerous equipment within the workplace. So the next step is to say, okay, great, I need to be compliant and I need to have these certifications in place. And the reality is that there are costs involved. So somebody needs to fit the bill. And that would generally be the employer. So as an employee or as an individual, if you have experience, you are more than welcome to get this certificate on your own. And you can pay for it outright and it is yours for the duration that it is valid. But generally, employers are required to make sure that the people are trained and obviously certified. So with that being said, we have set up the business in such a way that you can make a payment plan and you can pay it off over a period of 12 months. And it obviously depends on the number of people that you want to train. And like most organizations, depending on the number of people that you want to train, there's always a plan to be made. So if you would like to know more about how the process works and what needs to be in place, get in touch with us, www.meet.org.za, or drop us a mail, info@meat.org.za.